Hey, welcome back in for another episode of Mindset Monday with me, Matt, where I share with you things that have helped me over the last nearly 13 years get sober, stay that way, rebuild my marriage, and navigate life. Wasn't always good at this, and I'm not going to say I'm perfect at this by any means, but hopefully something I can share is going to help you along the way. I want to talk about shame today. Shame is something that a lot of people struggle with, like a vast amount of people struggle with. Just about everyone I've ever talked to working through addiction recovery in some way struggles with shame. And I think it's also very true of partners and spouses are dealing with shame in some way. Either they're having to navigate someone else's shame, and when someone's shame spirals, how are they supposed to respond? And not to mention the shame that you may feel as well for maybe what you've tolerated, things that you've said, the position you find yourself in currently. It's the disparity between where you thought you'd be in life and where you are, and the feelings that that conjures and brings. I'm going to share with you how I've dealt with shame over the course of the last 13 years, but particularly really in those early days when things were super raw and I didn't have the tools or the hindsight or any evidence that I wasn't a bad person, because that's what really shame is. It's an internalized belief, really, that we are bad, that we are flawed, that something is wrong with us, that we make crap decisions, whatever it is. And I want to go back in time and talk about some of that stuff. And hopefully something I say today can help you through this. Hey, thanks to Soberlink, the sponsor of today's show and every show here for the last year or so. They've been an amazing partner for our show. Soberlink is more than just a breathalyzer. I mean, that's what it is at 30,000 feet, but it's so much more than that. Soberlink is an accountability device. It's also a tool that gives you visibility. Something that partners and spouses crave is transparency. Like, you've been in the dark for so long, you've had to guess, are they drinking? Are they not? You can't really trust them because they've been lying to you about it. And it's really, really difficult. Soberlink can take these arguments and these fights completely off the table. Listen, if you're someone like me and you're serious about rebuilding your marriage or your relationship, get a Soberlink. I didn't have this back then, but it could have been a really useful tool in my toolkit, because trust is lost in buckets, but it's rebuilt in tiny little droplets over a really long period of time, not 30 days or 60 days or even really sometimes a year. This can be very long term, but Soberlink, can help expedite that for you. You set up a network of people that are supportive of your recovery journey, or they have an interest in it, right? This can be a spouse or an ex-spouse. This can be a counselor. This can be a group of friends, a sober community, whoever, people that know what you're trying to do. And it's going to do a couple of things. The first thing it's going to do is provide you real accountability, because people get alerted every time you use the device. So if you've been drinking, they will know. And if you haven't, they will also know. So it's going to prevent you from stopping at the liquor store or the bar on the way home, because you know you got to use that thing in like an hour or so. But also it's going to give people a reason to root for you. And like, there's no better feeling than whenever you're fighting this lonely battle than to have people in your corner who are supportive of you. So it can be really useful for that. But I think for spouses and partners particularly, and the reason this is a sponsor of our show, because it's a gift that you give your loved ones. Like, Paige was done fighting with me or asking me. At this point, she just assumed that I'd been drinking, because there was no more trust in our relationship. When there's no more trust, there's no more connection. There's no more intimacy. We weren't really in a relationship anymore. We were just roommates. We were coexisting in the same house, but that was about it. She had to find reasons to trust me. Soberlink can help give your loved one those reasons to trust you again. Every negative test is a drop back. It's a deposit back into that bucket of trust. And guys, it takes a very long time. Or if you're on the other side of a relationship and you're done, and at this point, you're just trying to make sure that your children are safe, because that is a real fear that many people have. A lot of people stay in relationships that are abusive or otherwise destructive because they just know that they can keep their kids safe if they're around, and they'll take those bullets for their kids. But if you're in a position where it's no longer safe for you, but you want to make sure your children are safe when they go visit, Soberlink is there for you. It is court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada, and is trusted by over 200,000 people. Judges, attorneys, they know about Soberlink. You can get these written into your custody agreements. And Soberlink has taken off all of the upfront costs that are used to be involved with getting one of these devices. You would have to buy a device, then you get a subscription plan. And the cost was kind of heavy up front. And if there's anything we know about these sorts of relationships, is that finances aren't always in the best order. Our account was always negative something. We were no stranger to overdrafts. We were lucky to have $100 in our account, like truly. So no more upfront costs. When you sign up for a 1-year subscription, it's only $19 a month, y'all. $19 a month. You can get a device sent to you right now. Sign up for $19 a month. And since you're an awesome listener of our show, you can go to soberlink.com/wheels, enter your email address, and Soberlink will send you a $100 Visa gift card that you can use on anything you want. You can use it on the subscription plan. You can apply it toward other bills in your budget. You can, whatever you want to do. $100 for you for being a listener. Again, that's soberlink.com/wheels. Check out Soberlink if this sounds like something that you may be in the market for, and support the companies that support our show. And while you're on the internet, check out twfo.com, where you can get twofold merch. You can get recovery rocks. There's a recovery rock right there. Our logo on the front. Thank you for being my rock on the back. It's a really cool way to acknowledge the journey that your spouse has walked with you, or your partner's walked with you, or a friend, whoever, through your recovery journey. We have wheelies that get these for each other. We have partners and couples that listen together and they get them for each other. It's just so cool to me every time I see that. It's just like there's still love and something amazing in the world where someone's willing to acknowledge. We've also got like t-shirts and stickers and hats and things like that. It's all on the website. You can check it out. You can check out our program, Independently Strong, that we built with a licensed therapist that really walks you through the journey of healing as a spouse. This is not an addiction recovery course by any means. This is for spouses and partners to help them reclaim themselves. You can find out more about all of that stuff over at twfo.com. All right, shame. Shame is something that we get asked about all the time. I've got people that message me. I've got people that, I know personally that are working through recovery. And shame it's a hot topic, man. It's something that you feel intensely, especially in those early days. I remember waking up in rehab the first night that I was in treatment, or the first morning I was in treatment. And it's like those surreal moments. If you've ever been a kid and you've been looking forward to a vacation, or maybe you're an adult and you've been looking forward to a vacation for a really long time, like the travel day is always kind of a blur, but the morning you wake up in your bed and you open your eyes and you're like, oh my God, I'm here. It's real. Well, I had the reverse of that experience, waking up in rehab, where you wake up and you say, oh my God, it's real. And what followed was just this feeling of intense shame. The first thought I think I had was, oh my God, I'm one of those people now. And by those people, I meant those people that wear scarlet letters, those people that have been to rehab, those people that everyone kind of whispers about, and they look over like, oh man, you feel pity for you, like your pride is completely gone. You feel like a failure. And that was my experience. Like when I really the rubber hit the road and this was real now. It was the first time I'd really been public about my problem, about my addiction. And then second to that was the feeling that I had just put Paige through the very same thing, that this is not what I sold her when we first got together. Like, hey, come date me. It'll be great. You'll be the spouse of an addict. You'll get to walk through rehab with me, and all the guilt and shame and disgust that comes with it. It's going to be awesome. Come on in. Like I felt all the weight of all that too, for what I'd put her through. And I didn't know if we'd still be married or not. I had no idea what our relationship would look like, or if we would have one. I didn't know what she was thinking at home. Was she thinking, oh man, this is the end of the road? Was she calling divorce attorneys? Like I legitimately didn't know. In those first weeks, usually they kind of put you on a blackout period, so you can't talk, and you're just left to wonder. It was a horrible feeling, man. Just a horrible feeling. And there had been times that I'd gotten my ass chewed for various things, by Paige, for lying, being caught in lies, for just forgetting things, for not doing what I said I would do, for leaving her high and dry, for not being a supportive partner or friend, really. And she would, in moments of pain, let me know that like this was not okay. Like, you cannot treat me this way. And I would just feel intense shame. And what sucks about addiction and shame is that they are closely related. And generally, whenever we feel shame, it triggers this feeling, like it's a physical sensation that is incredibly uncomfortable, and it's overwhelming. And, addiction it's a maladaptive way to deal with emotions of any kind, really, but shame especially. And so what it usually does is it drives more use, and then more use brings on more problems that will really, at the end of the day, result in more shame, especially when they come to light. And it's just this vicious spiral that you find yourself in, man. So what I want to do today is walk you through shame, like why it exists, what is it? Because I think a lot of people too, especially in addiction recovery circles, are like really, really anti-shame, right? Because of the dangers we just discussed, how it can drive you to places to use more, and it drives you deeper and deeper and deeper down that hole. But I don't think it's something that we should look at as like terrible or bad or something to completely avoid. I think we just have to recognize it as one of very varied emotions that you can experience. And believe it or not, like it can serve a purpose. There is such a thing as a healthy way to process shame. Like there's a reason we feel shame from an evolutionary standpoint. And I want to walk you through how I've dealt with it. And maybe the way that I frame it can help one person. And if it helps one person, it was worth sitting down and recording this and talking about it. But not just for the addicted person. A lot of times my episodes are for people that are struggling, but it's also just as much for spouses and partners. And spouses and partners have their own experience with shame as well. And that's their own internal battle with, oh my God, this is my life, right? Like how Paige, I guarantee you how she felt. She's not here next to me, but I can speak for her because I know her, that she felt the same thing, that, oh my God, like I got to go tell my parents. And like, we want to be proud of the people that we've chosen, you know, like to be our mates. And when that person has done something dishonorable, you feel shame that comes with that because you're sort of guilty by association. And so spouses and partners kind of feel like lepers too. And then there's this other issue as someone else is spiraling from shame and you're there with them when it's going on. How do you deal with that? How do you process that? Is there anything, are there magic words that you can say to stop the shame spiral, to pick somebody up? Or is it best sometimes just to sit with them through it and to let them experience it? Like, how do you support somebody if you're in that position where you're still wanting to support someone's recovery journey? How do you deal with that shame spiral? How do you deal with it and not internalize it for yourself? Like, oh my God, I'm not allowed to talk about my experiences because my experiences equal shame for them. And where does that leave me? Right? It's kind of an interesting topic because it hits so many facets of both partners and their journeys through this thing. But I want to get into what shame really is first. So believe it or not, it is a natural biological emotion. Shame exists on a spectrum of emotions. It's closely related to disgust. Its sister emotion is guilt, but they are all nuanced and a little bit different. But it comes from ancient wiring within us. Think about ancient humans, right? Your oldest ancestors and how they survived. They survived in communities. And within those communities, in order to survive, there had to be norms of some kind. We can't run around killing each other if our goal is to survive as a species, right? So things like violence or murder, things like that might have been shunned by that community. Our brains adapted a way over time of feeling an intense emotion that was supposed to drive connection and reconciliation to your group. So I think of shame that way now. When I feel shame, I feel this intense, horrible, like, oh my God, I suck. I am worthless. I cannot believe I did that. But I also remember that the purpose of that feeling is not so I can just feel stuck and that's the end. It's to drive me closer to something else. It's the alchemy of recovery. It's the alchemy of shame, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I just want you to know that thousands of years ago, like being rejected by that community meant death. Like if you were alone, that meant death. And that's the reason that shame exists, is it was an internal alarm, I think, that said, okay, it's time to reconnect and it's time to make that right. That's really what it was. It was never meant to just punish you so that you can feel like a POS. It was to keep you in relationships and to keep you in community. So shame isn't about destruction. It's about restoration, really. That's the way that I frame shame. And I think it's the way I've always kind of looked at shame. I have had moments where, like, and I should preface this by saying, not everyone comes stock with the same wiring. And our childhood experiences can shape the way that we behave as adults. That is not a secret by any means. And so my experience probably will be different than yours because we've lived different lives. And I just want to acknowledge that the way I'm talking about it, if my experience isn't exactly yours, that's okay. That's probably exactly what I would expect. But I think there's going to be some similarities. There's going to be a way that you can relate this to your own life. But guilt and shame, kind of mentioned that how they're related, right? And a lot of times they're used interchangeably. I think that a lot of times when we're having like layman's conversations, we'll say like, oh, damn, that's a shame. Not really, kind of, sort of. Guilt and shame are different. Guilt is feeling badly that you've done something that has hurt you or hurt someone else. It's just feeling badly. It's saying, damn it, I did a bad thing. Shame is saying, I am bad. I am flawed. There's something fundamentally broken inside of me. And they are different. A lot of times, what I tell people, especially in addiction recovery, is that like you can feel guilt. I mean, you ought to feel guilt. Shame, at times, you can feel acute shame. But chronic shame, what purpose does it really serve to feel chronic shame, right? And I think if you recognize that you're someone who's feeling chronic shame, it is something that we've got to work on because it doesn't really serve a purpose. If the point is to drive us closer and to reconnect, how is it doing? I guess, how is it supposed to accomplish that if you're constantly feeling like you are broken and you are flawed? Because if that's true, then there's no point in reconciling. Like for me, when I was a teenager, like I was a real emo teenager, right? Like I had it written on my backpack, and I had a black backpack, like a JanSport backpack, and I used a whiteout pen. I don't know if you remember those. It was like a pen, and you could squeeze it, and like whiteout would come out. And I decorated it, and I wrote "Can't win, don't try" on it, and that was like my anti-establishment emo message. But I, in some ways, kind of believed that too. But we're adults now, right? I was a kid with hair covering one of my eyes, wearing emo band shirts like the Ataris or Taking Back Sunday or Finch or any of these bands I listen to and still do to some degree these days. But you know, it serves no purpose whenever you've got a family and a career and children. You cannot walk around feeling like you are broken, like there's something wrong with you. I am a firm believer, and you cannot convince me otherwise, that every single person is capable of loving themselves, and every single person is capable of accepting themselves, even with the things that we've done. I believe that, and that is one of my fundamental values. That's what got me to where I am today. Had I believed otherwise, I would not be here. I would have stuck with that moniker I put on my backpack: can't win, don't try, what's the point? I would have given up a long time ago. That's not me. And I hope that some of that can rub off on you if you are in a position where you feel like there's just no point in any of this. Like, what's the point, guys? But I think that guilt motivates repair, and shame can sometimes paralyze it. Like when shame is triggered in your body, in your mind, your amygdala floods with cortisol. Cortisol is, I think, commonly known as like the stress hormone, right? It doesn't feel good. And it also affects the way that your prefrontal cortex operates, which is, you know, logic and empathy and all this stuff. And it kind of goes offline. And that's why you blush and you tighten and you freeze, or sometimes you lash out. This is a response to stress, and your body's treating the emotional exposure almost the same way it does pain, because it activates the same parts of the brain. I just want you to know that when you feel this way, it is not verification or validation that you are screwed up. It's just a normal biological response, okay? I think one of the most comforting things I'd ever heard when I was getting sober and I was talking to some of the first therapists that I'd worked with, or some of the first people that were like, I'd never talked to other people that dealt with addiction before. It was something that was my little secret, and I wanted to keep it secret. But nothing good happens in the shadows, guys. Nothing good, right? This is true for spouses and partners as well. If you're part of our community, our Facebook community, which is free, by the way, go on our website, tufo.com, find our Facebook community, join it. Just being around other people and knowing that your emotions are, dare I say, normal, is a really reassuring feeling. It's like, oh shit, this is a shared experience. I thought I was the only one feeling this way. That alone, a lot of the times, is helpful, and it gets us out of that freeze and, oh my God, I must be screwed up. I am the only person feeling this way. There must be something wrong with me, because why would nature design us this way to feel this way, right? But I just remember, like, you have to remember that shame is not trying to punish you. It's trying to protect you from rejection. It's trying to drive you toward repair and reconciliation. And again, the origins of shame are, it would take too long, and it would take much more than me to explain the childhood origins of shame. But just know that as children, we link our worth a lot of the times with approval. If I make a mistake, I'm bad. If I'm rewarded, I must be good. You know, and like, I think that a lot of kids, I know that Paige has dealt with this and struggled with this a lot, with being a perfectionist. Perfectionism is actually a response to avoiding shame, because you are rewarded so long as you are doing the right things. what that leads to is an over exaggeration toward doing the right things all the time. And it's not just because the reward feels so good, it's because the shame feels so bad. So we're running toward this thing, but we're really not running toward perfection. We're running away from shame. The thing about perfection is that it's never attainable, right? And so you're just stuck your entire life trying to be perfect. And when you ultimately come up short, which you will, statistically is impossible to be perfect, what you get is shame. And like, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways. They're like, oh, there it is. Yeah, I have to be perfect. No. We have to accept our shame. And sometimes we have to accept that like, it's okay to be flawed, to have these problems, and that nobody's perfect. And like, that's okay. That's okay. But if you've grown up in like a difficult household, let's say you had addiction in your household growing up, let's say that you had chaos, or that you had parents that pushed a perfectionist idea toward you, shame becomes like sort of the emotional language, I think, that you use to survive. Like if I'm good enough, then I'll be safe. That's kind of how we tie the two together. It's that safety equals perfection or doing very, very well. And anything less than that is terrible, and I'm broken, and something's wrong with me. And like, I can't make mistakes. And I think there's that belief that like we can't make mistakes that stems from a lot of this stuff. But as adults, like when we're confronted or something happens, like the same stuff lights up, and you will kind of revert back to that. It is wired, it is hardwired in you. And that's not just current pain of what happened right now, the current fight that you're having with your spouse or your partner or your employer or your children, whoever it is. That's every old echo of your entire life saying, I'm not good enough. Understand that all this is going on. And what I hope that you can do up to this point is be compassionate with yourself. I hope that everyone can practice some form of self-compassion. I don't really care what you've done. Everyone deserves some form of self-compassion. Some more than others, maybe. When we talk about abusive children and things like that, like I may not be able to have compassion for you, but maybe someone will. Okay? Some form of that for you. My guess is that you've done something less harmful than that. I hope, anyway. You've just dealt with addiction. You've said some horrible things. You've not performed the level that you expect of yourself or your loved ones expect of you. But we're flawed people, man. We all are. Like, and I think I always operated on that basis, is that I'm not bad. Like, I'm not fundamentally bad. I know I can get right. I can get this together. I'm a fuck up, and I do it a lot, and I can't keep doing this. There's got to be a better way. But it was never like I was incapable, I guess. And I want you to know that too. Whether you're someone who's dealing with addiction, or you're a spouse or a partner who has been reeling from depression and anxiety, and you're feeling some of your own shame because of the life that you're living that you did not plan on, and the life that your children have that you did not plan on, it does not mean that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And I need you to be gentle with yourself. If we're going to get through this, you've got to have some form of self-compassion. You just have to, okay? Self-compassion. I'm not saying that the entire world needs to give you compassion, but you at least have to have it for yourself. Please dig down deep and fight with me as we develop some kind of self-compassion so we can move past this. We're never going to be useful if we can't at least start there. Useful to ourselves, useful to our fellows, anybody, right? So I think that, like, someone was asking me about this. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. He messaged me and trying to rebuild a relationship and really struggling because old stuff keeps coming up. And we'll get into a lot of the things that resurface that trigger shame. But a lot of old stuff comes up. Like, guys, recovery is so hard. And I need everyone to know that going into it. It is going to be hard. It is going to be difficult. There will be parts of it that feel easy. There will be parts of it that feel so foreign, it's impossible. That's normal. I just need you to know that that's normal, okay? Alex Hormozy is this guy. He's kind of almost become like a, what would you call him? Almost like a grind culture, like hustle culture meme bro. But I think that he's got some really great takeaways and insights as well. I love some of the things he says, and he talks about this idea of hard and difficult and whatever else. This has been helpful for me. He put it into words that I could have never. He's got a story that goes along with it. And it comes from a time in his life when he was going through college, and he was, I guess he was one of the fraternity president, one of I don't know, I wasn't in a frat, so I'm not sure the terminology, one of the guys that like runs the fraternity, whatever you want to call those dudes, right? And they were having pledges. It was like pledge week, and they had all their pledges in. And best I could gather, there was some amount of hazing or like discipline or whatever there was, right? And these kids are miserable. Like there's a group of kids in there that are just absolutely miserable, and they're trying to rebel and be like, you can't treat us this way, you can't talk to us this way, blah, 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 whatever. And they're really, really pissed off. A lot of them want to quit. They want to give up. And he walks into the room and he asks them, he's like, I need you guys, I'm level with you for a moment as a human, not as like this dictator that's ruining your life at the moment. But show of hands, how many of you thought that this would be easy when you started? Based on everything you've heard about how to get into this place, how many of you thought it would be easy? And not a single hand went up. He looks around the room. He's like, okay, good. So raise your hand if you thought it would be hard. And then every single hand in the room goes up. Every single one. He's like, guys, this is what hard feels like. Okay. It's that simple. This is what hard feels like. Oh my goodness. I have just lost video. We're going to keep going on audio though. Overheating camera. That's a new one. I'll have to solve that some other time. But anyway, this is what hard feels like. If it feels hard, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just hard. So what do we do about that? I think the first thing we do is accept, okay, this is just what hard feels like. I can do hard. I'm doing it right now. I have proof I'm doing hard. But what a lot of people do, especially in early recovery, is because we don't have the tools for that kind of stuff. We don't have the visibility or the experience. A lot of times we're learning this stuff like later in life. I think that one of the most difficult parts of recovery was being like, I was 26 when I got sober, 27. The day before my 27th birthday, I'll just call myself 27. I came out of there with the tools of like a 17, 18-year-old kid, man. I didn't have the tools to deal with this kind of stuff, and it was hard. And when it got hard, that was confirmation to me that I wasn't good enough. I just need you to know it's going to be hard, okay? And just, it's okay if it's hard. It's generally going to feel that way. That's a very normal thing. Hard is okay. So when I was getting sober, I accepted pretty quickly that premise that this was going to be difficult, that it wasn't confirmation that I was broken, that anything was necessarily wrong with me, that I was like less than. I think it was just like, this is difficult. They told me it would be difficult, and I can do this. I know I can do this because I'd seen other people do it. And I'm like, man, you can have some of the most powerful thoughts in those moments. Like, well, what about me? Like, why can't I do it? Well, you can, and then like start to think about what your life would actually look like if it worked. And that should get you really, really excited to think about being able to play with your kids without needing like a substance in your body just to feel okay, about going to work and coming home and like enjoying like a nice meal with your family without like disappearing to the garage to go drink or do whatever you do, to have a connection with your spouse and to have a best friend, someone that really supports you through thick and thin, and you can do the same for them. Like that to me was the most attractive thing in the entire world. And I was willing to do anything to get it. Absolutely anything. So pretty quickly, I had to start to own the parts of myself that I despised. I know those two things don't seem connected, but I'm going somewhere with this. You cannot love yourself while also hating the experiences that shaped you. You just can't do it. You can, I think, and that's not to say that you can't regret some things that you've done in life. I definitely do. I regret certain things that I've done, but everything, I wish it'd be different, but it's not. Everything had to happen the way it happened for me to be where I am now. I wouldn't be this version of me without that. And I love this version of me right now. Therefore, in some ways, I have to honor those experiences. Maybe I don't love them, right? Not I'll admire those experiences, but like I have to love the lessons that came from them. And I hate that I put other people through hell doing it, but I cannot love who I am today and simultaneously hate everything that I am. Okay. So where I'm getting with that is I think pretty quickly I was able to talk about a lot of the stuff that I had done and talk about it with a bit of a sense of humor. Not like, oh, hey, that was funny when I lied to you. It was more like, God, what a shithead that guy was, right? Like Paige and I would have conversations about me as if we were talking shit about a neighbor, if that makes sense. Like there's a split in my life that occurred in 2013, and there was me before, and then there's me after. And there's almost a clean break in my mind where that version of me did some horrible and horrendous things. And I despise that dude. I am not him. He does not define me today. I am this new version. I am walking towards something else. I am going to be this new, courteous, carefully thinking about my words and my responses version of a guy. And he's going to be a better guy. You can't say anything to me that I haven't already faced about myself. Try me. There's nothing you could possibly say to me that can really hurt me because I've already acknowledged all these truths about myself. I've acknowledged that I have a tendency to lie. I've acknowledged that I have a tendency to give up. I've acknowledged that I have a tendency to have a very short fuse. I don't deal with stress very well. I don't deal with anxiety very well. I lash out at people. I do all these things. These are truths I've accepted about myself. And in order for me to work on them, I had to. How are you ever going to work on the things that need to be worked on if we're not willing to accept those things, right? So right there, like you cannot hurt me with truths that I've already accepted and I've started to make right on. And I think that that's in some ways that's ownership because you can't hate yourself into healing. You can only face yourself into freedom. So once you stop hiding from your own truth, shame kind of loses its leverage. Like you cannot hurt me anymore. You can't say anything that can genuinely hurt me. That's why I can sit there and listen to pain that I've caused. That's why I can sit there and me and Paige can talk shit about me like I'm the neighbor. That's why I can sit there and discuss all these things because I'm listening with curiosity. I'm listening with reverence for the past and an honor of the past with this, God, call it a naive belief that I can be a different person today. And like, I truly believe that. I believe that I can be different tomorrow than I was today. I have to have hope in that regard. I really do. And I had that hope, wife or no wife, career or no career. I wanted that for myself. There was nothing more in the world I wanted than to have the ability to process my emotions from the beginning all the way to the end without doing what I typically did, which is put a drug in my body or act in a way that was not in accordance with my values or the way that I was raised. And so let's look at how this actually shows up in relationships. Like, how does this show up when it comes to addiction, betrayal, emotional harm, and kind of how like shame sort of sits in the background of nearly every hard conversation. And it doesn't look like self-loathing generally. Sometimes it does. What it normally looks like, what shame normally, how it presents is in defensiveness, withdrawal, or in hopelessness. So let's say your partner says, I'm hurt. They're hurt by something. What you hear is you're worthless. And most of the time, not all the time, most of the time that's not manipulation, that's dysregulation. But there are some people, do not get me wrong, there are some people that will manipulate and use this as a form of Darvo to turn the conversation back around to alleviate them of the burden of having to fix anything. They will turn it back around on you. You're making me feel shame because you're bringing up how you feel. That's not the same thing, okay? Generally, this is dysregulation in people. So here's some common scenes. These may sound familiar to you. Let's say that lies resurface, okay? Let's say that, lies are a big one. I think that that's probably the most damaging long-term of them all. It's the loss of trust in a relationship. It takes so long to rebuild it once it's gone. It's quick to build, but it takes forever to get it back. Like once it's been broken, and so everyone's a little bit different about this. Some people are pretty quick to trust again, others not so much. But the shame reaction is generally going to say, like, I already said I'm sorry. Like, what do you want to do? Just want to keep kicking my ass about this? Like, what am I supposed to do? I've already apologized for it. And you're just really, in general, saying nothing more than like that. Every time I close my eyes, I can't help but think about how I felt when that happened. Like, it's just as important for partners to be able to process their pain. And this is where I think some of the addiction recovery for addicted people gets shit wrong. Almost everything in its intention is to make things easier on the addicted person. But I think sometimes we create this false bubble that they live in where they're never going to have to face hard truths. Are we going to go tell their boss not to be too hard on them too? Right? And it's not to say that like you shouldn't like aim to hurt people. And I know wheelies, I know spouses and partners, that's not their intent. They're not trying to make you feel like a piece of shit. They're just not. They're just talking about their feelings. But shame is going to say, I already said I'm sorry. And it's just this defensiveness. A healthy response, this is use your own words, but I completely get it. Like, I understand that my lies changed how safe that you feel. And I'm here to face that with you. I'm not here to rush it. You can talk about your experience. I am curious about your experience. I want to know, mainly because I don't want to repeat it again. And I want you to feel seen. I want you to feel heard. And I can say that from a place where it's almost like I come out of my body and we're looking at this other version of me, and we can both hate that dude in some ways. Like, yeah, that guy sucked, right? Like, I don't have to be him anymore. Like, although I am him, although I did those things, I will never let those things define me wholly and fully, if that makes sense. I hope you can kind of see the distinction there. Let's talk about betrayal, whether this is an emotional affair, a real affair, if this is hiding funds, if this is some grandiose lie that you've created, whatever it might be. And these can be, God, man, it would take me 45 minutes to go through all the different examples of how betrayal can affect you later on. But a lot of times the reaction to something like this is going to be, I can't keep hearing this. Like, you can't keep bringing this up. What am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do with it? I don't have a fucking time machine. I can't fix it. You see how invalidating that is? Because you've made their pain about you now, right? Like, in order to reconnect, we have to make space for each other's pain. In addiction recovery, you are going to have the larger burden and difficulty to do that because A, you're not going to have tools. B, you're going to be operating with a mind that's still trying to find homeostasis. And you're also, I think, very fresh off of some really difficult things. And like, you want things to go back to normal, but you have to get through the hard part. Remember, this is what hard feels like, and it's okay. You have to get through that stuff. You've got to be able to push through that in some way, shape, or form. I think that I've been through this before, especially when it came to lies around money. Finances were a big problem in our house, man. I was the key. I was like Bernie Madoff, hiding money around, spending it where I shouldn't, doing all kinds of shit. And she would bring that up. Like, we should be a lot further along in life than we are. Like, I worked my ass off and you spent every dollar I made. Like, I couldn't even buy myself new work clothes. I couldn't do any of this stuff. And I'm just listening to her, like, empathizing, like, yeah, God damn, man. I'm letting myself feel that without reverting to shame. I'm feeling guilty without saying this is because she has a right to be hurting. She still has every right to be hurt by that. And that's just the truth. Emotional abuse. This one comes up a lot. Man, I've heard this one a lot too. There was a very long period of time where Paige would not open up to me. She wouldn't talk about her fears. She wouldn't talk about her anxieties because I was either always trying to like bulldoze over her to fix that stuff and convince her that she shouldn't be feeling that way. Or I would say something to the effect of like, you know, like, I'm not that guy anymore. Like, I'm this new version. And I was positive about it, but still, like, it's rather invalidating to a spouse to hear that as they're recalling this event. And like, they're just sharing it, guys. They're not doing it to you. They're just doing it. Okay. They're just sharing it. If you want to be in a relationship with someone, you got to be able to talk about these things. And what I would say now, the healthy reaction, it's not, I would never say, I'm not that person anymore. Quit talking about it. That's not me. All right. Stop bringing it up. No, that's your shame talking. That's a shame reaction. Healthy reaction is generally say something like, you're right. Like, I made you feel unsafe. And that wasn't fair. Like, I would feel like shit if I were you. I get curious about that, what that's like. The more I can empathize and internalize and have more of a somatic, empathetic response to what she's going through, man, the deeper that stuff sits inside of me and the more reasons I have to work toward being somebody else and responding differently the next time. There's also, I think, in recovery itself, spouses and partners generally have ways they would like to see this go, and rarely is it the way that their loved one wants to work their recovery. Like, I think spouses and partners more than anything just want to feel safe and secure in your recovery. You can say that's codependent. I call bullshit. I think that that's nothing more than someone wanting some safety in their life again. They want some assurances, okay? That's all it is. We all would like to have assurances in some way. We also have tools and episodes about how to find that when you can't, all right? So I'm not saying I hope you know what I'm saying. I digress. They want to see some effort, right? And effort generally not just being that you're sober. Like that's something. But it's sort of, let's focus on these behaviors. Let's focus on reactions. Maybe you get into therapy. Maybe you're working with a recovery coach. Maybe you have a sponsor. You're working through some kind of a process and there's some kind of a curriculum, whatever it might be. And if you're not doing that sort of thing and they bring up anything at all to the degree that I would really like to see something here, I'm concerned because I'm seeing old behaviors pop up. Shame says nothing I do is enough. You see how we went from 0 to 60 that fast? Nothing I do is enough. Like, bro, I didn't say anything like that. Nothing, right? A healthy response to that is to process that moment. What they're saying is they're looking for safety. Okay, you can empathize with that, right? Safety? Okay, I get it. And I've been checked on this before. When I had not been working my recovery as hard as I should, because life happens, right? I might have missed a couple of weeks of meetings with somebody, or I just get so consumed in my work or other hobbies or whatever else that my recovery and I kind of slip back into old behaviors from time to time. And in those moments, like I have to acknowledge that that's just true. It's just a fact. And I say to her something like you're right. I've been so focused like inward that I've kind of forgotten about the connection, the safety that you need as well. And I want to rebuild with you. Like that's a healthy way to say, I hear you. And I acknowledge that these things are true. I've accepted this about myself. She's not saying that I'm not enough. When trust isn't rebuilt yet, that's another one. This is the can't win, don't try. A lot of people like this guy I've been talking to, really good dude, man. He's really trying to work through recovery. There's a lot of distance between him and his partner, and rightfully so, right? This is like years and years and years of addiction and everything that comes with that, and the abuse that comes with that, and the neglect and the financial turmoil and every bit of it. And there's just not much trust. And I think that this is almost like we talked about this in we'll talk about this in our episode that's coming out on Wednesday as well. But when you've made drastic changes all at once, it feels like there should be some kind of a return. You know what I mean? Like this is that. A lot of times in addiction, we talk about delay discounting and how that's just not really there. We cannot see the long-term picture. We want a reward now, because that's what addiction teaches you, is that I can fix this feeling right now. All I have to do is take the substance, engage in this behavior, and I will feel better. But that's not the way that life generally works. It's small, tiny deposits over time that have a big payoff down the road. And trust is the number one issue people struggle with in recovery, is that you are not going to have trust even when you're doing everything right. And that is just a byproduct of naturally not being trustworthy over the last decade, 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, whatever it is, right? There's a reason that there's distrust. And just understand that if there's distrust, you've earned it in some way and you played a part in that, okay? But your reaction to there not being trust after you've been trying really hard to regain it is not, then what's the point of all this? Okay. What's the point of all this? And partners and spouses, I know, are generally pretty great about this. I think that wheelies, especially when they see good behaviors, we tell people like, say something, like reinforce that stuff. It's really important. I hope you're doing it with your children. I hope you're doing it with your coworkers. Or if you're a manager, you're doing it with your people. People like to feel appreciated when they're working hard. They like to feel appreciated when they're trying to do the right thing. An attaboy, right? And you deserve them too. Don't get me wrong. If you're like me and you've got a partner who's really working on their own recovery and trying to change the way that they respond, and dude, say something. Jesus Christ, you know how hard it is to try to change everything about yourself. Can we please pick each other up, right? But we don't get to say, what's the point whenever they have a reaction to it? What's the point? Listen, your job is not to rush them. It's just to keep showing up, man. They're allowed to heal on their terms and on their time, and they will trust when it's safe again. And that's different for everybody. That's different for every situation, depending on what's transpired in the past. All right. So here's how kind of my 5-step process in some way. I broke it down as well as I could. I think I really covered it before this when I talked about the basis of it all, that I don't believe that I'm a flawed person. I believe I'm a fuck up and I make mistakes and I screw up a lot. And like, that's just me, man. Like, I'm kind of like a puppy in some regard. Like I can screw up and you can hit me with the newspaper and I'll scream and I'll run out of the room. And then within a minute or two, I'm coming around the corner, tail wagging, like ready to play again. That's just my attitude. And I always thought it was because I was just too dumb to know better, but I think it's actually like something I just came stock with, and I'm really grateful because it's kept me from like spiraling at times. Like I'm just always going to be optimistic about stuff. Like what's the point of being pessimistic? Like what's the point of thinking everything's always awful all the time, or that I suck, or that I'm worthless, or there's no point in any of this? Like I think that's where it all starts. But let's talk about how to process shame in real time. I generally name it. Like when I feel that feeling, like I know in that moment, this is my anger, this is my shame, this is the old behaviors that are in me. I name it, whatever it is. If you're responding and saying, see, I'll never change, or isn't being sober enough, or like nothing I do is enough, I'm not that person anymore, I can't keep hearing this shit, I already said I'm sorry, that is shame. You have to name it. Name it, all right? And then take a quick breath. This happens in a millisecond. Take a quick breath, identify the behavior. That's my shame. Let's separate the fact from the identity. I'm hurt someone is not the same as I'm unworthy. It's just not. And stay curious. I've always just tried to stay curious. Like, what is this moment? What is this thing trying to teach me about the right way to respond? Or even when Paige is sharing her pain, I stay curious. What is she trying to teach me? What am I missing here? I investigate it. I want to know more. I want to know about how I show up. I want to know about what it's like to be with me. If I know that, then I can be the best version of me, not just for her, but for me too, right? And then repair is done in usually pretty small ways. It's just consistency. It's small changes over time. That is so much better than big apologies. Big apologies matter, but consistency matters more. You should do both ultimately, but consistency matters more. Like apologize once big, and then just consistent behaviors from there on out, right? You can't do one without the other. You can't just make an apology and not be consistent. A lot of people are super used to that, but you can't just be consistent and not also acknowledge the pain, because what you're really doing at the end of the day is you're trying to avoid shame, which is more about you than everyone else. But you don't earn love by like erasing your past. I think you earn trust and self-love by facing it, if that makes any sense. So let's reframe some shameful thoughts. I'm going to look at the bright side here, okay? I always approach these things with the understanding that some people can weaponize this content. I hope that our listeners aren't doing that. Like if you're an abuser just trying to learn how to be a better abuser, like F off. Don't listen to me. Go away. Unsubscribe. If you're someone who's really trying to rebuild, I think this can be helpful. Let's look at the bright side. Your shame says that you'll never be enough. I want to reframe that in my dumb golden retriever way of thinking. Is that I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I am not perfect. I'm okay with not being perfect, but I will always keep trying. I've never told myself I'll never be enough. I felt that way a lot, but I've never internalized that. Can't go there because it's not true. It's just not true. It is false. But what is true is that you can always be learning. You can always be striving. How about when your shame says, I've ruined everything? What's the point? I've ruined everything. Man, I almost took it as a challenge that I caused harm. That's a fact, but I can repair it. I almost looked at it like that. Like, I can fix this. I bet I can fix this. I don't know. Maybe it's arrogant. I don't know what that is, but I think it was just optimism, really. It's like, I bet I can fix this. If I've got a 1% chance, I can fix it. Even if we weren't together, I was convinced that I could still be someone that people could look back on and be like, that was an admirable way to handle that. Even though they're no longer together. He's an amazing co-parent. He's a great dad. He's respectful to her. He honors her experience. He's great with the new guy. Like, I was going to be the best version of that. I was going to be the best version of that, or the best husband, father, friend, you name it. I have to believe that I can repair. I have to believe that. And I do. I really do. It can look different for everyone, right? Like, don't fall in love with one outcome. Don't put your entire recovery contingent on that outcome. I think you have to I was doing it for me, but like almost as a personal challenge that the universe was giving me. Like, try to fix this one, pal. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. What about like when your shame says, she'll never trust me again? Like, she will actually never trust me again. I will never be able to just go, with my friends on a golf outing because the phone's going to ring every 5 minutes, because when I get home, she's going to give me the third degree. She's going to question me. Like, maybe that's true for a while. Okay. I always accepted from day one that like I earned distrust. And if there was distrust, her reactions were generally a normal response to my behaviors over the years. That was her seeking safety. Trust is rebuilt in very small moments over a really long period of time. It was me going out for the first time and then coming back home and then sharing my experience. Like it was a little nerve wracking. I didn't drink. It was cool. I talked to so and so. I texted a sober friend of mine when I got uncomfortable, and I would come home and I would talk to her about it. And then the next experience would be something like that. And then maybe after a year or so, I'm doing different things. Like I don't think I went on like a trip with my friends, like out of town trip for maybe a couple years, but that was really because, I mean, it was just the way that life, what it required of me at the time was we had little kids and my responsibilities were with the home and I was freshly sober. And this is where I wanted to be. I went on those first outings, you know, and like we would talk in the evenings and it's just, man, it's little tiny moments like that over a very, very long period of time. Like you haven't earned shit in a month or 3 months or 6 months, maybe even a year, depending on like what kind of betrayal we're talking about, you know? And like ours was probably different because we didn't have any like affairs or any even emotional affairs or anything like that. I know that that can even take longer. We've had Dr. Porter on. He talks about how much longer that can take. And it's a lot, but is it doable? Sure. If both people are willing, but I think that there's this kind of this X factor that you still have to have the patience inside of you and not everyone does. And if you don't, like, that's okay, man. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. Like that, there is such a thing as a totaled relationship. Contrary to what some people will tell you, like there is such a thing and you are not a monster for not being able to do it anymore. You're just not. That relationship will look like something else in the future. It doesn't have to be the one it was. And that doesn't make you a failure either. I'm the worst person. That's another thing that shame will tell you. I'm just the fucking worst. I've even said like as a joke, but not really a joke, like I'm a screw up. And what I mean by that is that I'm just kind of aloof a lot and I get my head up my ass thinking about random stuff. I can be like at the grocery store and I know what I have to pick up and my brain will just be all over the place. I don't know if it's ADHD or what, but like, dude, I will start thinking about some cartoon that I saw when I was like 7 years old and reminisce on the nostalgia of what it smelled like in my house. And before you know it, I've left the store without the one thing I went for. And I've got a bunch of other stupid shit. And I come home and she's like, what is the matter with you? I'm like, I got no excuse for this one. Like, I don't know. And that's just, I do shit like that a lot. That does not mean that I'm a flawed person. It means I need to pull my head out of my ass. And I have had to form ways to deal with stuff like this. I carry notes around. I use the reminders app in my phone. We can adjust, okay? We can adjust. It doesn't mean I'm the worst. It means that I've done things that have been hurtful to her. Because to her, it probably feels like I just don't consider her. I don't consider her. I'm not thinking about her, which isn't exactly true. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not exactly true. I'm just my head in the clouds type dude that does not taking enough action to compensate for that, right? So like I'm always changing. I'm always growing. I've never claimed to be perfect and I never will be, but I will always shoot for it. I think that one of the last ones and one of the most damaging ones for people is that like, I cannot believe that I was that person. And that's a tough one for me too. Honestly, to this day, that's a tough one. There was a day a couple of years ago, you know, whenever we started really doing this work, it really opened up a lot of the spaces within our Paige's recovery and my own recovery that we hadn't looked at very hard. And one of them was this thought, this notion as I was journaling, like, what would she be like? What kind of woman would she be if she'd never met me? Like I had this idea that like, what if Paige and I never met and never dated? And I came across her at our age, like, you know, like old high school friends. And what would her life look like? What would her husband look like? What would her kids look like? What would her demeanor be like? And it crushed me that it would be different. Like I'm choking up thinking about it right now. She would be different. She would be a different person. Maybe for better, maybe for worse, but different. And I would have to assume for probably better, considering what we've been through. Probably better. It'd have to be pretty shit luck on her part for it to be worse, right? But then from there, I immediately go to, and that's because of me. And that's because of the person that I was. And that crushes me. Like that hurts because I have harmed someone else's experience in life. I had no right to take those things away from her. That's tough, man. That's a tough one to sit with. here's how I dealt with it in that moment is I let myself cry. I let myself feel guilty and remorse and horrible for it. And I mourned for her and the person that she could have been and the different personality traits that she could have, that she didn't develop because of me and the things that I'd done. But I think what I also recognized in that moment, looking at the bright side perpetually, is that I have an awareness about this today that I didn't have it, not even a smidge of it back then. And what that means to me is that I've grown and that I can be a caring, empathetic man. I can be a good person. And that's growth. And as much as I hate the person I was, and as much as I can't believe that asshole, I look at myself today and I'm pretty effing proud of the guy I see in the mirror. Not in an arrogant way, I carry a lot of humility. Like, I don't deserve anything that I have. I'm grateful for everything that I have. I'm grateful for the chance to repair. And I'm grateful that I've been able to do some of that. And I've gained awareness. And in those moments, I'm able to stop myself from that spiral, because there's something more beautiful about that than there is just saying, I can't believe I was that person, because unfortunately it's not Back to the Future and time machines don't exist. And so what good does it do to just sit there in that all the time? We've got to move past it. We've got to move past it. And that's how you alchemize shame. I've talked about many times the alchemy of recovery. If you've never read the book, The Alchemist, it's one of my favorites. It's a beautiful book about finding your purpose in life, right? Your true passion, whatever it might be. It's really good, man. I read that at a really pivotal point in my life. And I think that TUFO started very shortly after that. It was actually a byproduct of reading the book. But this is how you alchemize shame. And it's not from hiding from it. It's by changing the story that it tells you. I think that we have to be good storytellers to ourselves, and not in a delusional way where we deny the truth, not in a delusional way where we deny other people's truth, but in the story we tell ourselves. As Dr. Porter said, the story you tell yourself what happened is nowhere near as important as the story you tell yourself about what happened. Far more important is the latter. All right, let's talk about the spouse and the partner. And if the person that you love, the person that brought you to the show, is spiraling in shame, I want you to remember a couple of things as they're doing this. We talked about all those things I talked about earlier. My guess is that some of you were probably triggered by some of those things I said. I already said, I'm sorry. I can't keep hearing this shit. Like, I'm not that person anymore. Nothing I do is ever enough. What's the point? Like, nothing's ever going to change. You're just going to keep beating me up forever. Like, that's probably really triggering for you, that what you're dealing with in those moments is someone who's feeling shame. Here's what I need you to remember, is that their body is flooded with fear and with cortisol. And I think in those moments, they are in some ways trying to communicate to you, I need you to stop saying this because this is how I'm feeling as a result of that. But it doesn't mean that you cannot speak how you feel and that you can't share your experience. Some people will do this as a way to manipulate. I used to do this as a way to manipulate. When Paige would bring something up, I would overreact on purpose to get an empathy reaction for her, to get her off of my ass, because she's a very empathetic person. I knew I could prey on that. That's really what I did. I was manipulating her in some ways. Sometimes when I did this, other times it was genuine. But I would say for me, a lot of time it was me manipulating it. But that's not everyone, right? Those guys are out there. Be careful if you have one, because unless they actually take the actions of recovery, it's just going to put you in this confusing cycle for a lot longer. But sometimes people are just drowning, and like, it's almost like when your kids overreact. Like, it's not necessarily your job to fix it. Sometimes it's just your job to stay grounded in it, right? When they say something like that, understand that that's coming from a very visceral place. True or not, this is how they're feeling. And what's not going to make that better in those moments is to engage with the feeling that is usually rooted in irrational fear or something deep-seated within them. We're not going to fix that feeling by arguing with that feeling. I'm not saying you can't be pissed. I'm not saying you can't be mad. I'm not saying any of these things. I'm not saying you can't leave the room if you feel like you're going to snap, because that's bullshit. Because if they knew what you'd been through, they would never say some ridiculous shit like that. I'm not saying any of that. I think that in those moments, you just have to speak truth and not pity, right? Your job is not to fix them. Your job is not to I guess, soften yourself so it's more comfortable for them. Like if you're going to be in recovery, if you're going to face life, you're going to have to hear this kind of shit. Okay. So I think sometimes what you have to do is just let people feel how they need to feel, is what I'm saying, I guess. Is it they're going to respond this way? You just got to breathe through it. Try not to engage with it. Try not to fight with it. Try not to argue with it. Try not to make that the center of it. Right. I think what you can say is like, I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just telling you how this affected me. I'm just sharing my experience with you. And if they were listening to this episode, what I hope is that they remain curious, right? If you guys listen to these together, they're probably more helpful than you just dealing with someone who's just in a shame spiral right now. But you can also tell them like, you don't have to fix this right now. I just need you to hear me. I'm just speaking to you as my partner, as your wife. I'm just telling you how I feel. This is just how I feel. You don't need to fix it right now. This is just what I feel right now. This is what I'm going through right now. Or sometimes you don't say anything at all. I think oftentimes, this is usually where Paige landed, is she wouldn't say anything at all. She would just sit there with me in the moment. She would let the silence do the work, because then I would talk and I would keep going, you know? Usually I would just talk myself into, like I would just keep talking and talking and talking and talking until I had processed through it. She wouldn't have to say shit. She would just sit there. A lot of times is what you do. I think you can be compassionate without also caretaking their guilt. Like healing doesn't happen when you protect someone from shame. It happens when they learn that they can survive shame, that they can alchemize shame, not when we pretend it doesn't exist. This is where I think people who have ever come after me, like people in addiction recovery come after me, is on this topic specifically, is that shame has no place in recovery. Bullshit. Argue with me all day on that. It does, absolutely. It is a valid emotion, guys. What you do with shame matters far more. That is recovery. Shame is a normal emotion that people have. It is in us thousands and thousands and thousands of years in the making. It serves a purpose to reconnect us. It is a powerful emotion for a reason. It is our biology's way of saying, correct this, reconnect, fix this. I don't think we should push people further into shame. I am not for bullying people. I'm not for being an asshole to people who are struggling by any means. That's not what we've ever tried to do here. And I don't encourage any spouse or partner to do that. If you feel like that's where you're at in your relationship, where you have contempt and you cannot hold space for someone who's going through this stuff, you guys are probably cooked anyway. The relationship's probably done. Maybe there's a path forward. I don't know. In my experience, anytime I've ever had a relationship where I couldn't say anything nice and I wanted them to hurt, we were done. I've had those relationships. I don't talk to these people anymore. Luckily, one of them was not my wife. We hadn't got to that point. People do. Because I'm not sure how it's helpful for either person at that point, right? You're saying things to feel better about you because you need them to know that you hurt. And in order to do that, you're willing to make them the sacrificial lamb so that you can get that back. And like at this point, we're trading pain for pleasure. And there's really no point. Like, what are we really doing? But I think spouses and partners, a lot of times in these moments, feel like they need to either avoid it at all costs because they can't speak up. But also there's some conversations that are probably too early. That's why our community exists. And that's why the Wheelies exist as a group, y'all. We can talk about these things. We've got our own Discord community that's just for listeners of the show. If you are someone who has struggled with substance use, if you've had some sobriety under your belt year, you can come into the Discord and there's a chat for people in recovery as well. I opened that one up recently. There's a few people in there, I think. But it can be a helpful place for you to process some shit too. But spouses and partners, sometimes day 1 or day 5 isn't the time to sit there and talk about all of these things. Like, you're dealing with someone with a brand new brain, and I'm not sure how many people are going to be able to handle that conversation. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve to have your feelings heard. I'm just not so sure what they're going to be able to do with them. And that's what sucks. And that's what we try to do with our show, with our content. And I really try to do is expedite that process from which someone who's struggling with addiction can empathize deeper with their spouse's experience, that can reconnect them quicker so they can work toward recovery together. That is our mission, really, at the end of the day, for those that are trying to work toward this thing together, because that's what we did. And I'd like to expedite that even more. But like day 1 probably isn't exactly the time. I'm not sure if it is really. I think that you probably know them much better than I do, and you know when that's appropriate. I would hope anyway. But spouses and partners, I think, struggle with their own form of shame. And this is a far less discussed form of shame. This is the shame that belongs to the person that stayed. Many partners carry hidden shame. It sounds like, why did I tolerate that? How could I love someone who treated me that way? I am an idiot for believing them again. What does it say about me that I stayed with an abusive person? This is not weakness. This is human, okay? I think it's natural to feel this way. I also think it is rather cruel to talk to yourself this way. Why did I tolerate that? We know that manipulation plays a role in this. We know that lying plays a role in this. We know that trauma bonds and betrayal trauma play a role in this. If you know anything about trauma bonds, right? This is this intermittent reinforcement of positive behavior that's like breadcrumbs that keeps you coming back. That's almost like by design. This is a relationship pattern that develops in dysfunctional relationships. You tolerated it because you were promised something different. You love someone who treated you like that because you've been with them for a very long time and you have intimate experiences together that tie you together. Maybe you have children together, some of that's biological. What does it say about you that you stayed with someone who's abusive or addicted? Is that you're caring, you're empathetic, you're compassionate? Like, we have to do the same thing that I did with my feelings of shame and remorse or guilt and alchemize them. Like it breaks my heart when I see a lot of women who are going through like our community or whatever, and they're talking about themselves this way. Like, why did you tolerate it? Because someone convinced you to? Because you had hope? Because you had dreams? Because you saw the best in them? Like, I hope that you never lose that about yourself. I just hope that you apply it toward the right people. And like, how could I love someone who treated me like that? Like, guys, like, we mistake a lot of things for love. Sometimes it's just loyalty. Sometimes we could even mistake abuse for love, believe it or not, depending on what comes after the abuse, the intermittent reinforcement and things like that. What I'm saying is that these aren't weaknesses necessarily. I think that what they usually are is it shows me this is a really, really compassionate, empathetic, and beautifully character person. This is just an amazing person who's been caught up with someone who lies, manipulate, gaslights, does a lot of these things. And they put themselves in a position at some point on false promises that kept them stuck for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's loyalty, sometimes it's finances, whatever else. I think that what I want you to remember is that you were trying to survive. You were trying to protect your family. You were trying to protect your sanity. You were trying to protect that version of love that you believed in. And your nervous system chose familiarity over uncertainty, which would be leaving that situation. The shame you feel now, I think what it really is oftentimes is grief that's wearing armor that appears like shame, but it's grief. You're not ashamed because you were stupid. I think you're ashamed because you finally see how much you compromised in order to survive. And it's survival. Guys, we cannot fault ourselves for the things we did when we had to survive. It was necessary. We did what we had to do, didn't we? But now that we know something has to be done, I think that that's how you alchemize it. So let's reframe it. Instead of saying, I cannot believe I put up with that, I did what I knew how to do with the tools that I had at the time. Let's just say that you have this feeling, I should have left sooner. My only regret was that I didn't leave sooner. You stayed until you had the strength and clarity to choose differently. And that took what it took. Okay. You could have guilt and shame around, I lost myself. Or you found the parts of you that you'll never lose again. You discovered strength inside of you that you never knew you had. And everyone who comes in contact with you would be better for it because of that experience. You have to have compassion for the version of you who stayed. Like, you cannot love who you are today and hate the things that made you who you are. I think it's the only way that you build strength in the version of you who leaves or rebuilds or who makes sense of any of this stuff. And I think that there's also this shame of association. Like, you can love someone deeply and still hate how their choices reflect on you. And I think that's fair. Like, Paige has talked about this with our kids. She's like, and this is like kind of a dumb example, but like one of our kids, like our son, for instance, you ever seen how a 6th grade boy dresses? Holy shit, man. They will wear anything. It can be like 12 degrees outside. He'll have Crocs on, shorts, a hoodie that's like got crap all over it, hasn't been washed in a month, his broccoli hair, looking like just busted. And she's like, you're a reflection of me when you go out. You know that people probably think I don't do laundry around here. Like, you're a reflection of me, man. And I think that your spouse in a lot of ways is too. Like, you can love someone deeply and still hate how their choices reflect you. reflect on you, I should say. Because it's easy to feel judged or pitied or embarrassed for staying. But just remember that like my addiction is not Paige's identity. And she doesn't owe anyone an explanation for why she did the things that she did. If they really want to know, they can ask. Usually the people that have been there get it. And those that don't. Listen, those that matter, don't mind. Those that mind don't matter. The people that really mean something to you will not care about this stuff. They will understand it. Those that don't matter. And those sometimes are the people that you think ought to be the ones that understand, but they don't. Like they're wolves in sheep's clothing. But I think the moment you stop minimizing reality is the moment your shame begins to turn into wisdom. And I think that we can also like blame ourselves for some of this. And I don't think that 12-step groups for spouses and partners really help with this. There's a lot of victim blaming and a lot of the language is victim blaming. And there's a lot of it that's empowering too. I have seen some people that were able to frame really powerful messages and empowering messages that got them out of abusive situations. But I've also seen a lot of self-blame and people that struggle with how to deal with that. But like, you don't heal shame by punishing yourself for not knowing better. I think you heal by taking what you learned and using it to decide what you'll do on what you'll do to never accept that again, if that makes sense. I hope I got that right. It made sense in my head. But whether you stayed or you left or you're still figuring it out, like your story doesn't end in shame. It ends in self-respect at the end of the day. This is, I think we'll wrap it up with the alchemy of shame. This is shame's job is to wake you up, not to weigh you down. Its job is to drive change. And I will stand by that all day, every day. Shame is a feeling, a normal emotion that we have. When we have it, it is trying to tell us something. Shame is trying to tell you something. It is an alarm going off that is pushing us toward correction of some kind. We're trying to move towards something. It's trying to do that. If you're feeling it and not doing something with it, you're doing it wrong. We have to alchemize our shame. Feel it. Don't numb it. We have to face it and let it humble you. Let the truth humble you. It's okay. It's okay. This is the point of this. We don't know what we don't know. We have to learn. But if you think you know everything, you can't be taught. And we have to integrate it. I think that, okay, once you understand it, now we have to integrate it. Now we have to learn the lesson. And at the end of the day, we have to live differently. That's how you transform shame. You feel it, you face it, you integrate it, and then you walk through life living differently. You don't heal shame by proving you're not the person who caused harm. I think that that is something a lot of people try to do. That wasn't me. Let's just blame the alcohol. That's not exactly true. Explain your behavior sober. Explain your beliefs and your ideas about relationships and power dynamics sober. This stuff is deeper. Alcohol, drugs exacerbate these issues. Sometimes you can have delusions forced by these things, but at the end of the day, you cannot heal shame by trying to prove that you're not the person who caused harm. You heal by becoming the person who can hold space for the harm you caused and for the parts of you that tolerated harm on the other side. So shame at the end, it collapses inward, right? This is like a black hole within you. Accountability pushes you forward, owning that. You cannot say anything to me and hurt me with anything that I've already acknowledged about myself. You can't. And that's a powerful superpower, I think. It really is. It is, that's redundant, but it's a superpower in some ways because all it can do is better my relationships because healing really begins when you're validated. And you can't validate someone if you're running from the shame of their that is caused by them simply speaking of their experience with us. So I think that you have to meet shame with curiosity and let it humble you. Don't let it haunt you. When you can hold yourself accountable and still love who you're becoming, I think like that's real growth. Like that's really, really good stuff. That's real recovery. And I hope that through this, how long we've been going? Hour 15 or so, you've gained some insight that you didn't have previously on shame. And I'm sorry about the video, guys. I don't know what was going on. Maybe it's time for a new camera. That's never happened before. I don't know. It got hot. I don't know, but maybe I'll go back and make some clips from this one. But for those of you that watch, I'm sorry. You're going to have to listen this week. It's not the worst thing ever, right? That's how it started, was an audio podcast. The only reason we did video is because people were like, we want to watch. I'm like, really? Dang, okay. Well, if that's what the people want, that's what the people get. That's kind of the job. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the technical difficulties, and I can always switch back to a webcam or something like that for next time until I get this problem figured out. But I apologize. But as always, I appreciate you guys sticking with us. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you listening every week. I appreciate you guys asking questions and tuning in. And like, it's an honor to be part of your recovery. It's an honor to be sharing this experience with you as you're rebuilding in some way, whether that's a relationship or whether that's your own life outside of a relationship. It's truly an honor to be part of this with you. I cannot say that enough, that it's an honor that you would look to us in some way, shape, or form down the road and be like, that helped me. That is, I can go to the grave a proud man. I think Paige can say the same thing. She can go to the grave very proud that we were part of that. So thank you for letting us be part of your lives, letting us into your ears and your screens. Until next time, I'm Matt, and I'll see you.